Okay. We have audio, we have visual, we have record. We are ready to launch. So this is Kirsten Faithful with the Coalition Against Domestic Violence. Hello again to many of you. You look familiar. Your names look familiar, and I'm glad to have you join me this afternoon for this. I want to talk a little bit about the tactics that people who are doing harm to their partners then use in the courtroom, how those tactics kind of transfer over. More as a way to maybe be able to give someone information on what to expect, because it seems to me like one of the hardest things was people often, and I don't know why this was, they felt like if they had their day in court, they would have a chance to tell their story. They would get some kind of fairness and justice, and they'd be heard, and things would be fixed. And I think maybe this is projection, but they felt like, you know, they had respect for the court and were honest in court, and were kind of surprised and floored when none of those things happened. They didn't get their chance to have their say. The other party continued the abusive tactics. The other party lied, just flat out lying all over the place and manipulating everybody. And sometimes that seemed to catch people off guard. The other thing, kind of the reverse side of that coin, is by having this knowledge and being able to articulate it for that survivor who is faced with dealing with the dissolution or custody process. They may be going into it knowing that their partner is going to continue to lie and manipulate, and thinking that no one will believe them that that's happening. No one will believe them when they don't have any faith that this is going to work out for them, because they just know that they're going to get plowed over by their partner. And so it's a way of saying, hey, no, actually, I see it. I see it. I've seen it before. It's not you. It's not in your mind. I believe you. We're in this together. So having the information, I think helps in both situations. Excuse me. So let's remember that somebody who is harming their partner is usually also directly harming the children, and has typically the same motivations. And they, I often say, are almost boring in how predictable some of the behavior is, and one of that is motivation. So if my partner is leaving me and going through this process, then I want to get control back over them and the children, because that's my right. So they're the entitlement. And also, I want to control the process. And by doing those two things, controlling the partner and kids in the process, I'm able to get the other things, which is, for one thing, I want vindication. I want not only for me to be saying, see, I'm the victim here in this situation, and my partner is so horrible that I had no choice but to do these things, but I want all of those professionals that will be involved in the case, all those court actors, the mediator, the social worker, who knows who might all be involved in a case. I want them to see it too and vindicate my belief system and my choices and actions I've done. And I'm going to prove to them that I'm the good person here, right? Of course, the court system, the way we have kind of an adversarial system set up to make these kinds of decisions about divorce and custody, works really well for that perpetrator, because if you have an adversarial system, you automatically have a winner and a loser. And we know who's going to be the loser, right? So that fits right in with that motivation of punishing. There's, obviously both parties want to have economic security and stability, but often that motivation to win at all costs and come out with the economic advantage at all costs is really high up there in terms of what that person doing harm wants to achieve. So that's where you often see hiding of assets, lying on the disclosure forms, and jacking around the any kind of child support payments. And often because that person, typically those abusive behaviors often go hand in hand with irresponsibility. It's like, I want to own my children, but I don't want to be responsible for them. That plays into these situations just as much as it does anywhere else. I want to be able to have say and control what my kids do, but I don't really want to take care of them or certainly pay for them. Partners who are doing harm are more likely to seek custody than non-abusive partners, and they are actually also more likely to get it. In fact, I've seen studies that kind of come out about 70% of the time they are successful in their custody fights. And I think that's because of everything I'm going to talk about for the next few minutes. Hang on, we've got a little technical issue. Can other people hear me? If you can hear me, answer. I have at least one person who's not hearing me. Okay, hang on just a second. This is a problem when it's just one person, like me, trying to both speak and do the tech. I can't do both of those at the same time. Give me 2 seconds. Thank you, folks, for letting me know. So I can see that you can hear me, so it's just one person, which I'm sorry, but that's good for most of us. But let me just answer that. Okay, I'm going to keep going. So one thing that is really clear is how distorted that that abusive partner is in both the perception of their partner and in themselves. So they're very likely to see the decision to leave the relationship as proof that their partner is not a fit parent. You see, they're too immature to be making good decisions. They're weak. They have weak decision-making skills, or they're clearly not concerned about the children's well-being, because if they were concerned about the kids' well-being, they wouldn't be filing for divorce and breaking this family. Oops, come back. And they often minimize the role of their own abusiveness in causing that relationship to end. I mean, it ends for, the silly, flighty, whatever reasons, because their partner is a slut, you name it. Whatever they can come up with to blame and name call that partner as the reason, and nothing of their own behavior. And sometimes just don't even seem to have a sense of the seriousness of their behavior, because it's no big deal to them. It didn't harm them, then it's no big deal to anybody. They often have a romanticized self-image. Look at what all I have done. Look at how I have rescued this person. Look at all I have provided for them. Look at what a great parent I have been. And if anything, are rather contemptuous of their partners. So we know that the courts have a bias towards communication. They are looking for parents who want to cooperate, who are great at coming up with decisions together that are in the best interest of the children. And so when you have a survivor who is saying they don't want the kids to have contact, they are often characterized as being bitter or vindictive. They are the non-cooperative parent. They're not willing to put the kids first. And so that abusive partner can come in and just be wonderful because, oh, I don't care. Of course they don't. I don't care if there's lots of communication and contact. I don't care if we share custody. And they are, of course, reasonable and rational and fair. So the bias that the court system has is something that they can leverage. And I think we see that pattern again and again with systems, taking a bias that's already there and leveraging. And that kind of goes right into what I'm going to call the charm offensive, which is by seeming to be that reasonable, easy to get along with partner, the one that isn't trying to be divisive and hard, they come off looking great. Remember that they have years of practice and are very skilled at lying. You know, people say, oh, the reason that they use abuse is because they're out of touch with their feelings and they don't know how to express themselves. And that simply is not true. They are completely in touch with their own feelings. It's their partners and their children that they are not in touch with their feelings because their feelings don't matter. They're completely in touch with themselves. They are often extremely good communicators and manipulators. And you know, one of the things that they will often do is say, well, yes, oh my gosh, I did push that person. I did yell, or I did. Now they'll admit to minor things and may even seek treatment. Anything to look like they are that they're invested in change, that they are being honest and open about what they did to seem more credible. In other words, I'm really working hard at being a better parent and being a better partner, and I don't know why my ex is being so uncooperative and bitchy about all of this. They're not willing to put the children first. And of course, that that partner is often presenting as being fragile and hostile and disjointed, and they take essentially the symptoms that abusive partner has created are then used as evidence that the survivor is the problem. And then if there's any kind of abusive behaviors that happen during that point of separation, which of course things are going to happen because that's when stuff escalates, right? It's framed as the stress of the breakup rather than the cause of the breakup. Another tactic is, I didn't name this one. Let me back up and say that a lot of this is based on the work, based on the work of Lundy Bancroft, and he came up with this term, preemptive strike, for this particular strategy, and I think it really describes it. In other words, let's see, what is my partner going to accuse me of? Are they going to say that I have a substance abuse problem? Are they going to say that I was a neglectful parent? Whatever it is, the person doing harm says it first. In other words, they say, oh, you know, the reason that I did the reason that I pushed my partner was because they're drunk all the time. The reason that, and they will accuse all down the line with all of the things that they might likely be accused of. And what that does is it kind of creates a smoke screen where what it would look like to a judge or another outsider is, well, you know, he hit me. Well, she hit me. Well, he did this. Well, she did that. And it undercuts both sets, which, you know, the abusive person doesn't mind if their stuff is undercut, but it undercuts both set of accusations as seeming just like this, like petty bickering. Like he said, she said, or she said, or he said, it's just petty bickering. And therefore, they're equally abusive, they're equally difficult. It distracts from everything, and both of the sets of accusations, both the real ones and the lying ones, are essentially crossed out and nullified. I've definitely seen that one in action. Here's one that I'm sure that you've come across as a struggle. When you're in a greater position for bargaining, which that abusive partner is, they start off with a lot more of the good cards in their hand. It's easier for them to bargain, and it's easier for them to give things up, right? Because they already have more cards to be bargaining with. And the other thing they can do is to make completely unreasonable demands, like, I want complete sole custody and sole care. No, I don't want sole custody, but I'm going to start with something that's completely unreasonable. And then when we meet in the middle of, okay, we're going to have joint, half of the time with you, half of the time with me, that compromise then appears reasonable when actually that compromise is still incredibly unsafe and is nowhere near what that survivor wanted. But if the survivor isn't willing to go, look, meet me halfway. I wanted sole, but I'm willing to give up half of it, and the survivor is not willing to do that, then once again, they come across as being the difficult person. Meeting in the middle isn't safe. And it's a real catch-22, because for that survivor, if they relent to try and make a good impression and to try and seem like they're being cooperative, that they're being a good parent, then that's held against them later as proof that either their partner wasn't really dangerous, like, wait a minute, during the temporary matters, you didn't mind having shared custody. Why are you complaining about it now for the permanent? So it either proves that the abuse isn't really bad, or it proves that she's a bad parent. Because, well, if the abuse really is as bad as you say, why did you let there be shared care during that temporary matter? So there's no winning. Complete catch-22. You hold your ground, you're unreasonable, you try and come part way, and now you're either a liar or you're an unfit parent. Witness tampering. There is no such thing as a domestic abuse case, whether it's civil or criminal, that does not involve witness tampering. And yet you hardly see it framed that way ever. But all of the threats to the partner or to the children or to the family of that survivor, threats to the attorneys, they will sometimes make threats to the attorneys or to the court actors to get what they want out of that case. All of that is witness tampering. Buying off the kids with promises of, oh, if you live here with me, you can have your bikes and you can go to your old school and you can have your video games and whatever, but if you live with so-and-so, then you're not going to have any of that, and you're going to be poor. That's witness tampering. And certainly kidnapping would be big, huge witness tampering. I've seen a couple cases where people who were acquaintances, friends, neighbors, got on the stand and just lied outright because they were scared of that abusive partner. It's interesting, some of the accusations and allegations and how they are often, for the survivor, they're saying them out of fear, and sometimes out of concern for their partner. I'm concerned my partner has a substance abuse problem and I really wish they would get treatment, or I'm concerned that their relationship with the kids is so bad. When the person doing harm is presenting allegations, sometimes they are presented, in the case of mental illness, with a sense of, oh my gosh, I'm so worried that, you see, no reasonable, sane person would leave such a wonderful marriage and would do this to the children. And, they've really been depressed, and aren't they seeking counseling? See, they sought counseling. So that just proves that they're depressed and they have a mental illness. And I don't know that they should be the primary caretaker of the kids when their mental health is so fragile, and I'm not concerned. Of course, that person isn't concerned about being evaluated and talking to a counselor, because most of the time abusive partners come up completely normal on psychological evaluations, whereas the survivor will often come up with depression and with anxiety, paranoia even. In other words, they have the symptoms that the other person created. So you have somebody who's not at all afraid to offer that, to pay for that, to push to have those kind of evaluations, knowing that their partner is going to, that's going to be something that's going to be harmful to their partner in putting forward their case. Technically, in the Iowa court system, because we have no fault divorce, you don't actually have to prove anything. You just have to say, nope, neither one of us want to, we don't want to be married, or I don't want to be married anymore, and we're done. But this can affect the way the court perceives and the judgments that are made by the court, the attorneys, the evaluators, because they are human and they have biases, and they have largely the same cultural biases that are out there in larger society. So it is more common than not to have allegations of promiscuity. And we have such stereotypes in our culture about a good mom and kind of the good, pure, virginal mom, and then the whore, the slut, the person who shouldn't have access to children whatsoever, much less be allowed to raise children because they are just so bad. And then, oh well, see, my ex is going out with several people, and then they're exposing children to these strangers, to multiple strangers, concerns about this partying lifestyle that the ex has engaged in, and it's entirely possible, if you have spent the last few years or last few decades isolated and abused and tied to someone, that you might have a great sense of freedom and say, you know what, I deserve this. I deserve to go out and have a party and see friends and date and have sex with whoever I want to, because I'm a grown person who gets to make those choices, right? And that can be part of healing, but that's not how it comes off in the court. Another thing that's going to come up here, not only in terms of promiscuity, but also if there's any way of, I don't know what to do about more problems with audio. Hang on. I have found, just for future reference, that I don't even try using the computer audio anymore. I just call in. Like, I'm on my phone now. It seems to be much clearer, and their computer audio system is kind of wonky. But back to, this is where LGBT issues, any kind of accusations that they can leverage, that can be seen as a way to denigrate their partner, like, oh, my partner is now with a same-sex partner, and see, they aren't concerned about how the children might be made fun of or bullied over this, or even just, oh, I know the judge is kind of a jerk and has some heterosexist attitudes, then I can leverage that and again, paint my partner as not appropriate for placement of the kids, right? Obviously, isolation is a tactic. It's a great tactic. And so what you have, sometimes I've seen this also at restraining order hearings, where the abusive partner is there and they might have their squad who are, it's kind of like the anti-wedding. When you go to a wedding, there's the groom's side on one side and the bride's family is on one side, the groom's family is on the other. And you go into the courtroom for a dissolution or for a restraining order, and you have one party's family and friends on one side and nobody's there for the survivor. And not only that, it can be even worse when the survivor's family will sometimes even rally around the person causing harm, even because they're afraid. And I will include children rallying around the person causing harm because they are afraid. Adult children rallying around the person causing harm because they know that their best bet is to appease them and they have nothing to fear from the survivor. Economic abuse follows into the court system. I can afford a better lawyer usually if I'm that person that's caused harm. And I can have more resources for the kids. I might still be in the family home. I may not have had to move or change jobs. And I can keep taking my partner back to court again and again and again and just wear them down. Make this process last as long as possible. Every time there's anything that I can file as a change of circumstance, we're going to go right back to court and try and relitigate this. And that's going to mean continuing to pay attorneys. Or I can say, hey, let's just give me what I want, and I can make this go away real fast by agreeing. So it's a process of wearing them down until they just can't afford to fight the case anymore. One thing about that person that's causing harm, they often, because they are perceiving the world through, and perceiving their relationship in particular through a victim lens, I'm the one who's not getting what I'm entitled to. How dare my partner not give me what I want? How dare my partner say no to me? How dare my partner leave me? I am, poor me, poor me. That's been a part of their belief system throughout the relationship, and they've been taking notes. And when their partner has said no, when their partner has acted in self-defense, either literally, like pushing, shoving, hitting, you name it, or figuratively as a way to say no, to stand up for their rights, to try and maintain their own dignity for themselves or the kids, that is interpreted as aggression against them. That is interpreted as, see, my partner is victimizing me, and they have kept a logbook in their head or sometimes in real time, and they are skilled at twisting the descriptions of the events that have happened to create a very convincing impression that they are the ones that have been victimized. If nothing else, again, the accusations from both ways can be a washout of, well, see, it's just mutual. It's just mutual battering. So they might say, well, my partner need me, need me. We were arguing, and it hurt me. I fell to the floor. Kind of conveniently left out, yeah, I had them up against the wall, strangling them at the time, and that was how they were able to get away from me. But it sounds like mutual battering, right? And, for the survivor, because particularly if you're talking about a violent episode, they're in fight or flight mode. What can happen to their memory. They might remember specific sights and sounds and instances, but it often gets very blurred and mushed together because it's a different part of their memory that's paying attention to that. And so you have one person who's operating out of their rational brain during those episodes, and you have one person who is in this survival mode. And so one person is able to articulate it pretty clearly and manipulate the facts, and you have the other person who's like, but I know that's not what happened, and I'm not sure. And plus, survivors always blame themselves so much and are so much more willing to admit to what they have done and say, yes, oh my gosh, I do feel terrible. I did kick her. I did kick him. I did throw that thing, and I'm just as bad. So this all, again, works to that perpetrator's benefit. New partners. Oh boy. A new partner can come in and can testify about how wonderful their relationship is and how they have never seen any of this horrible behavior that's being thrown out there. It's just not the person that they know. And they can testify about how happy the kids are during visitation, or how happy they've been while they've been living with them, or what a great parent that abusive partner is. A new partner is a financial resource. So now we have two incomes. I help pay for childcare, or I am home and I can take care of these wonderful children that I have fallen in love with. And sometimes that's really true and genuine on that new partner's behalf, because that is who they are seeing, because the abusive partner's behavior, their abuse is entirely under their control. They can be absolutely as charming and calm and rational as they want to be. And so the new partner legitimately is honestly saying, I don't know what you're talking about, because I see these wonderful things. And the nastiness stuff is kind of down the road waiting for later. And so then what happens is this idea might emerge of, well, whatever problems there may have been, these are two good people, they're just oil and water, and they shouldn't mix. And so the problems are rooted in their relationship, and they are just mutually bad for each other, and they aren't rooted in the person of that abusive partner. It's not about them. It's not about their behavior. It's just about a bad relationship. And since the relationship is over, all problems are solved. Visitation, of course, is an opportunity to gain access, to threaten, to manipulate, to monitor. Children are often used during this time to monitor, well, who has your parent been seeing? Who have they been talking to? Who has come over to the house? Where did you go? Where did they go? All of those things, as well as using visitation both during dissolution and custody proceedings, and actually afterwards as well, as an opportunity to continue to yank the chain of control. In other words, okay, I was supposed to pick up the kids for visitation, and then I learned that my partner is going out with somebody on that Friday night that I'm supposed to be picking up the kids. And so I'm going to wait till the very last minute and then say, oops, sorry, car broke down, my mom is sick in the hospital, I can't come and get the kids. And so while they thought that they would have an opportunity to do this thing, now they can't, because now they're stuck with the kids, right? And I'm going to make sure that I do that so that they can't move on with their life, and certainly so they can't have a new partner. The reverse might be, I haven't been showing up for my custody exchanges, for my visitation, whatever, and my partner is just kind of on, okay, well, we're going to schedule that trip. We're going to go to that family reunion or whatever. And when I hear about it, suddenly showing up at the last minute and asserting the privilege of my custodial rights, so that I can again mess up the plans. I've heard this is an ucky strategy. If you have somebody who has been charged with sexual abuse or child abuse or etc., they might suddenly go in and file for custody. And sometimes they might be told this is a strategy by their attorney. Because what that does is it undermines those criminal allegations. In other words, now the argument can be made that the only reason that those allegations were made or came forward is that they knew that that person, that defendant, was about to file for custody, and it was a way of undermining their case. People seem to get kind of stuck on the idea that the abuse wasn't reported before separation. And there's so many reasons for that. Obviously, hope is a big one. Shame, embarrassment is a big one. Sometimes because all of the messages from society is that, well, why don't you just leave? Suggest that if you just leave, that will solve everything. They may have thought that, okay, I will leave and that's going to end the abuse. And then guess what? It doesn't. So then they have to, that survivor has to up their tactics themselves, their survival tactics and their strategies. And so before, when they weren't planning on reporting, now they kind of feel cornered, like they have to tell about it. In other words, in order to get help, they may be forced to discuss the abuse and to disclose what's happened. Things escalate. So before, maybe the abuse was all those other things on the pound control wheel, but it wasn't the physical or sexual violence. And now, because of the separation, it is. And so that's why the abuse is being reported now. And also, if they've just had a chance to be away from the relationship for a while, that can offer clarity. You know, you get away for a couple weeks and your head clears and you look back and you go, oh wow, that was a really bad situation. I didn't understand how bad it had got or how chaotic it was until now I've had some distance and I've had a chance to talk to other people or see the power and control wheel, right? And have that aha moment of, oh, that's what was happening. I knew that I felt awful. I knew it was wrong, but I didn't have words for it. And so now that I have words for it, now I'm going to talk about it. So all of those things can be reasons for both adults and children. Children also gain perspective through separation. Kids may also, because separation means separation for the adults, it doesn't often mean separation for the kids. Suddenly they have increased parenting time and particularly increased solo parenting time. So before, yeah, maybe they were with that abusive parent after school every day, but so was the other parent. And now suddenly, for maybe the first time ever, they are solo with the abusive parent for long periods of time. And so their risks have gone up and they feel like, oh my gosh, I have to report for my safety. Whereas before, they didn't feel the need, or their fear of what the consequences of reporting were outweighing the actual, that seemed to be the more dangerous decision. Kids always disclose, are always more likely to disclose during major life changes or disruptions, whether that is separation or a move transition to a new school. Life changes are opportunities for all of us, children included, to make even bigger changes. Like, as long as this is happening, I'm going to do this too. And whereas the abuse may have mainly been targeted at the other adults, if I can't target that adult anymore and I don't have anything else, any other way of getting them to comply or just plain out punishing them, the worst thing I can do to my partner is to harm the children. And so I didn't harm them before, but now I'm going to. I wish that I had a longer list for survivor strategies than I do, but I'm going to circle around to where I started and say one of the big things is just validation. Like, you see this too. You see it clearly. You're not snowed by what's going on, and you believe them and you support them. That's huge. That sense of, it's not just me. It's not that my worldview is crazy and all of these people are telling me that I'm the bad one. Oh, it's not about me. um, Another thing is understanding that it's a marathon and it's not a sprint, and they need to pace themselves. That if they pour all of their energy into thinking that this is all going to be over in 3 months, that's not what's going to happen. And they're going to need to have a longer view and do some more self-care. They're going to need to have to strategize for long-term and not just what's going to get me out of this relationship right now. And those are conversations that I always experience some resistance on. And that sense of I'm just focused on now, and I'm essentially going to sell my economic survival in the future in order to simply get away, and for custody of the kids, and anything else I don't care about. And to be able to have a conversation about, I understand where that's coming from, but in a year when the economic situation is driving you to thinking about going back, to homelessness, to instability in all kinds of ways, it may not be the best thing in the long run, a year down the road, 2 years down the road, 5 years down the road. They really do need to, because of that preemptive strike, and also because their partner is going to just say and use anything, they need to be completely honest with their attorneys about any bad, and bad I'm going to put in quotes, any perceived bad or weapon that could be used, whether that's, yes, I did have an affair while we were together, yes, I have a same-sex partner now, yes, I did smoke a joint in 1982, whatever it is that is probably going to be lobbed at them to try and undermine their case. They need to be prepared to disclose that and deal with it ahead of time. And if they think that they've seen lying and bad behavior in the past, boy, they ain't seen nothing yet. Anything that they can do then to deal with their own issues, that, some long-term counseling and support, if they do need treatment for substance abuse, if there was a child abuse report made, even if it was not founded, if they can say, yeah, but I took myself to parenting classes of my own will because I thought that would make me a better parent. All of those things can be helpful in bolstering their case and showing that I may not be cooperative about offering up more visitation, but I am invested in my children's well-being. All the conversations that you've ever had to have about being firm and calm and not getting angry and playing the game, because you're simply not allowed to be angry at injustice. You're not allowed to be angry about accusations. You have to be calm, rational, charming one yourself, because that's who you're up against. All of those conversations apply. They may not want to testify, but often it can be, and of course this is an attorney-client decision, that is the chance to tell their story and to explain some of the accusations and manipulations that have come up so far. And so they might need practice preparing to testify. They might need to go and see the courtroom beforehand and sit down in the witness box and get a feel of what that would look like and feel like to be sitting there. They might need help jotting down notes of what happened and what it is that they want to say, to kind of collect all of those chaotic thoughts. And it's going to be helpful for them to connect with other survivors. Again, there's that validation of, oh, you experienced that too. Oh, you experienced that too. Some people, that means that they want to be in a support group. Other people, they don't want a support group, but maybe they want to be in a reading club with other survivors. Maybe they want to be online, connected to online chat rooms or online bulletin boards where survivors are posting. Or maybe it's reading books that say, hey, this is not about you, this is common behavior, and and seeing that they're not isolated and alone in their experience, because this happens so often that people can write books about it. But whatever it takes so that they are not alone in their experience. Safety planning in general, of course, and also specifically for hearings. How do you get there? Who arrives first? Who's going to leave? How do I safely get to my car after the hearing? Where am I going to be that evening if things have escalated because of that hearing? Safety planning with kids for visitation or for custody. It's going to be hard, but they really should ask for more than they want, so that when they are in that bargaining phase, they're not starting. What they often is like, I want to be fair and just in this, and I don't want to come off as mean, and I want the person to be reasonable, so I'm going to start with a reasonable list of wants. It's like, well, but you started there, and if you start with only what you want and only what's reasonable, you have nowhere to negotiate from. So if the other side is going to start with unreasonable things, you need to actually ask for more than what you want, so that you do have space to negotiate and give some things up and land on a spot where you feel like it's still safe. That again is a conversation that I've had without a whole lot of success, because the person is so focused on not escalating, on fairness, on being reasonable, and they still care about the other party. And they're perhaps not a very good bargainer. I'll just say that a lot of Americans are not good bargainers. They need to spend more time at garage sales and trying to talk somebody down in price. They need to spend more experience buying cars. And women in particular don't have opportunities to experience that and to bargain. And I know that custody and visitation issues it's not a game, and this makes it come off like it's some kind of a game or competition, but this is actually about a skill to survive this process. If somebody wants to relocate, then they need to bring that up, if at all possible, right there during this time, and not have it all settled and then say, okay, I'm ready to leave. I want to get out of here and take the kids, because that's opening the case all up again. So if there are relocation issues, address them as part of this package and just get it done with. Even if it's something that's going to be, I'm going to finish out my degree, and then in 2 years I hope to relocate to X, Y, and Z state. If you can get it done during this time, it's one less reason for your partner to take you to court. Court orders, restraining orders about not interfering with counseling, not interfering with medical care, all those kinds of things can be really helpful, because those are places where that person doing harm can do all the lovely witness tampering, right? Can show up at the counseling session, can just not comply with the orders to take the kids to their therapist. And it's helpful to have those in writing, as well as spelling out any kind of visitation arrangements as much as possible. Do I have to sit there if my partner doesn't show up? How long do I have to wait? Or can I leave after waiting for 15 minutes? Or do we have to sit there for hours and have my partner suddenly show up and say, oh, well, I showed up and they had already left? I've seen, if the order was basically, if mom has reason to believe that the ex had been drinking prior to picking the kids up, simply did not have to offer them up. Could say, get back in the car, kids, we're going home, and could deny if there was concern about that with an ex who regularly drank and drove. So who is transporting? Where are exchanges taking place? Are they taking place in a public place? Are there other parties that have to be present for those exchanges? What's the means of communication? Is it written through email? Is it by text? Is it by phone? I'm a little leery of saying you can't have any communication except you can have phone calls. about the kids because there's no record of that unless one party is recording those phone calls. So text or email at least forces there to be some kind of a record of that exchange. Oh, and by the way, if it comes to recording things, just a reminder that Iowa's laws say that it is perfectly legal to record conversations, whether that's an in-person conversation or over the phone, so long as one party to that conversation knows it's being recorded. So you can call and talk to your abusive ex-partner and you can record it on your phone, or you can turn your phone on and you can record that conversation as you're standing there at the Casey's because you know that it's being recorded and it's perfectly legal to do that and it is perfectly legal evidence to submit to the court. And I have heard attorneys and I've heard police officers say that neither of those two things are legal. It's like not legal to record and you can't use it as evidence, and that simply isn't true. And now that we have cell phones, we have all of that evidence gathering right at our fingertips all the time. So that's a really short list, as I said, of strategies. And I wish I had more to offer, but sometimes awareness and being able to predict is half the battle, and being able to explain to the attorney what to predict, and being able to frame for the attorney, oh, see, this is called preemptive strike. Oh, well, this is the charm offensive. Oh, this is what you're going to see. There was a case where I had a consultation with an attorney before they had gone and had much interaction, and I had given them, I'd given them an article, and I talked with them about what was likely to happen, and they patted me on my little feminist head and said, that's okay. I've done these before. I can take it from here. I don't really need any of your information. And then came back after their client was just slaughtered in the system and said, yeah, I read that thing that you had given me afterwards, and yeah, what you said was like all right on. That all happened, and like, yeah, no kidding. The nice thing is that they then represented the next person for free. They said that, and they waived the fees for that particular client. So what he said was, no client should have to pay for my education. I'm like, yeah, well, you just feel bad because she completely lost everything in this custody case. So on that note, we are almost at the end of our time. I haven't seen any hands or anything in the middle of there. So I'm wondering if there's any other comments or questions. I'm waiting. I'm again going to thank you for your patience in having to reschedule this one. I think not as many people could attend this one, but oh well, there will be the recording. Still not seeing hands, so not seeing chat box. Thank you very much. Good luck. Go out and continue to do the great work that you do. And let's see, I can't remember what webinar is scheduled next. Oh, child abuse reporting is scheduled next. That'll be fun. So I guess we'll see you for that one. I don't remember exactly what day, but it's the beginning of June. Guess I better get to work on it. Okay. I will see you around and have a good day.